What's up everybody? Welcome to the video. In today's video, we're going to go over some of the basics of Svelte, the file structure, and how it works. So once you create your Svelte application, you're going to have a very basic file structure such as this. This is your source folder. Most of your code for your application is going to go inside of this source folder as you see. And when you create your Svelte application, you're given a root app.svelte component. Components are the building block of your application, and you can have an unlimited amount of components, and they basically break down your code into different parts. So you can have a component for forms, you can have modal components, header components, footer components, and all of these components are then compiled together and injected into the DOM, and that's what you'll see on your website. And the next thing we want to look at is your main file. You're either going to have a main.ts or a main.js if you chose JavaScript or TypeScript. They do both work exactly the same way. What the main file does is it's the starting point for your application. This is what'll take your root component, your app component. It creates a new instance of that app component, and then it targets where it should inject it into the DOM. So as an example, you have an index.html file. This is what's shipped to the browser. So in your index.html file, there's a couple different ways it could work. With Vite, it creates a div inside the body with the ID of app. So that's why you get the get element by ID. That's where it's going to inject it. Sometimes you will see, depending how you install Svelte, where the main file does target just the body and it injects it right into the body. It works very similar, but that's basically how your application gets into the DOM. So for now, we'll work with the app.svelte component, the root component, but as your application gets bigger, you are going to probably create other components, and all of those components don't get injected the same way. They're going to nest inside the app component, and then the app component is what's going to inject them. And once you start creating components, those are going to live inside of your lib folder. Inside of this folder is where you're going to house any of your data, your API stuff, your components. So what I like to do is I like to create a new folder for it, a new directory called components. This is pretty common practice because then you'll put all your API stuff in an API directory. And in the Vite setup, it does create a component for you. So let's just move that in there. And to give you an example of nesting your components, in your script file, you can import your counter. So you import it from lib components counter. And once you have it imported, you can go ahead and just nest this inside of the HTML in your app. And then if we head over to the browser, you could see that that count component is showed here. And the last part of the file structure that's very important is when you're getting ready to ship out your application, if you run npm run build, what this does is this creates the production build for your Svelte application. So in this instance, it's going to go into the dist file. Sometimes you'll see it compiled into the public folder. It depends on what bundler you're using. But this creates the bundle that is optimized for the browser. It creates a JavaScript file, a CSS file, and then a production HTML file. And as you can see in here, your script tag targets the index.js file, and your style sheet targets the .css file. These are the files that are optimized for your browser to run your application. So that's just a quick overview of how Svelte works, the file structure. I hope you enjoyed the video. In the next video, we'll go ahead and start getting the code into our application just to see how the things work.